You're listening to the Birth Advocacy Podcast. I'm Kira Walsh, and I'm passionate about two things: supporting birth and helping doulas break free from burnout. If you're juggling on-call life, feeling underpaid, and wondering if this work can truly be sustainable, you're in the right place. We'll talk about raising your rates, setting boundaries that stick, and building a business that leaves you feeling energized, not exhausted. Let's jump in. All right, tell me if this sounds familiar. You walk out of a birth completely wrecked, but not just physically, yes, your feet hurt and you could probably sleep for 14 hours straight, but you walk out feeling completely emotionally wrecked too. So maybe it was a long birth, maybe there were just way more interventions than your client had planned for, or maybe you found yourself up against a provider who just wasn't listening. And by the end of it, you feel like you are actually running on fumes, wondering if you even made a difference being there. And even after you leave the hospital or the birth center or wherever that birth was, you don't actually leave, right? You are replaying the whole thing in your head. You're probably second guessing what you said and what you didn't say and what you should have said. And if you've ever felt like that, I just want you to know that you are not alone. And truly, those intervention heavy births, those just hit different. And especially when those interventions weren't part of the original plan. Because it's one thing if the client goes in, right, knowing they want an epidural or they've chosen an induction or a cesarean was always on the table, right? Whatever it is. But when those interventions start stacking up out of nowhere, when things start feeling like they are spiraling faster than anyone expected, when your client is looking at you with that deer in headlights expression and you can just feel how scared they are, how overwhelmed they are, that's when it really hits. Because you're not just witnessing a birth, you are literally witnessing the moment when that mom realized that she isn't getting what she wanted, when her autonomy starts literally slipping through her fingers, and she was probably questioning if she had any control left at all. And you're standing there trying to hold space, trying to anchor them, trying to advocate without stepping over the line with the doctors, trying to remind them that, she still has choices, even when it feels like everything is just moving way too fast. Those are the kind of births that really leave a mark. And that's why they drain you in ways that are so hard to explain. And if you don't have a way to process those births, they will pile up and they will take you down. So let's talk about how to protect your energy, not just during the birth, but after the birth and in the long run, so that you can keep doing this work as a doula without burning the hell out. Because you don't have to carry that weight. You don't have to go home from every tough birth questioning if you did enough, if you were enough, if you should have done more. So today we're talking about how to protect your energy, let go of what's not yours to hold, and actually decompress after those really hard births so you can keep doing this work without burning out. So I'm going to break down the biggest mindset shifts that you have to make, the strategies that are going to help you stay grounded when you're deep in that long intervention heavy labor, and the exact ways that I release the emotional weight after the birth. So again, it doesn't pile up and take me down later. Because again, if you've ever left a birth feeling exhausted, completely drained, or carrying guilt that wasn't yours to begin with, this episode is for you. So let's get into it. All right. So the first birth that comes to mind is probably one of the hardest births that I've ever supported. I've definitely had a lot of hard ones, but this one was long. It was almost, I want to say 48 hours of just nonstop support. And it was packed, and I mean packed, with interventions that my client just didn't want. So it started with an induction, and then obviously came the constant cervical checks, which then led to Pitocin, and then an epidural that only half worked, a provider who literally ignored every concern that she and her husband had. And then after all of that, she ended up with a cesarean. And I was right there with her, right? I was holding her hand, advocating where I could, helping her stay grounded. But by the time I left the hospital, I felt completely wrecked. And I don't mean just tired, I mean emotionally heavy. Like I was carrying something that truly wasn't mine to carry, but I got in my car and my brain immediately went into replay mode. Did I fail her? Should I have pushed harder? Was there something I missed? And for days, and I mean days, I carried that. I second guessed everything I did during that birth, and I let it eat away at me until I finally stopped. And I had to really stop and ask myself, what am I actually holding on to here? Right? Because the truth is that the guilt I was carrying wasn't mine to hold. My job wasn't to control the birth. It wasn't to guarantee a specific outcome. It wasn't to get her a certain birth plan. And I knew that, right? Like logically, I knew that. My job was to support my client and her husband in whatever happened. And I did that, right? But that birth truly taught me a huge lesson about not just boundaries, but also emotional protection and how to truly let go of what's not mine to hold. And now that's exactly what I want to share with you because here's the thing. These births challenge us in literally every way. As a doula, you are being challenged physically, right? Like you are literally running on fumes. You've probably been on your feet for hours, surviving on like a granola bar from the vending machine and half a Gatorade. Like mentally, you are navigating decisions, you're advocating, you're keeping track of a million moving pieces in this mom's birth. And emotionally, you're watching your client's birth take a turn that they didn't want, right? You are witnessing moments that feel so unfair. You're holding space for so much. And that's the part that drains us, right? That's the part that makes us walk away questioning ourselves. But listen, burnout doesn't have to be the outcome of attending births. There are ways to protect your energy, to process these births, especially these intervention heavy births that are so hard to witness, and to truly keep doing this work without letting it break you down. So let's talk about how. Okay, so number one, you are not responsible for birth outcomes. I need you to really hear this one. And I know that you know this logically, but subconsciously, you are holding on to a lot more than you need to. But I need you to know that you are not responsible for how the birth unfolds. And I know it is so easy to walk out of a birth, and especially those intervention heavy births, thinking, should I have done something more? Could I have prevented that intervention if I just did X, Y, or Z? Did I fail? But again, birth outcomes are not in your control. Again, you know that logically. You know that it is not your ability, right? Like it's not some magic superpower that you have as a doula to control a birth, or else we would for every single birth. But your role as a doula is not to make things happen in a certain way. It's to support your clients through whatever happens. So again, instead of focusing on the things that didn't go as planned, I want you to really ask yourself, did I hold space for my client? Did I help them feel informed and empowered even when their birth plan was going to shit, right? Did you make her feel seen and supported? Because that is what actually matters. If you did your job, if you supported your client in every way that you could, that's enough. And the rest is really not yours to hold on to. And here's where we mess up. Here is number two, protect your energy during the birth. And again, this is where a lot of us mess up. We go all in, right? If you are anything like me, you forget to eat. You definitely don't take breaks. You pour everything into the moment, and then you wonder why you leave the hospital or the birth center or wherever you are feeling completely fucking drained. So here's what I need you to start doing. And I am taking my own advice with this one. I want you to start taking micro breaks. And what that means is you are going to step out of the room for a few minutes, even if it's just to breathe, even if it's just to pee. You are allowed to take a moment. And I guarantee you, again, it's the people pleaser in us. I guarantee your client and her husband are not going to mind. They're probably thinking, why the hell hasn't she taken a break? So take those micro breaks. Go get a drink of water. Go fill up your water bottle somewhere else down the hall. Again, even if it's just a minute to breathe, get out of the room for just a couple of minutes and take that time for you. My second tip, pack actual food, not just snacks, real food. I guarantee you there is a refrigerator somewhere where you can keep your food, keep your yogurt, keep your cheese. Think high protein. Your body, just like your mom's, just like you tell her during birth, needs actual fuel to keep going. Again, a lot of these things we tell our moms, but we don't take our own advice. Next one, set mental boundaries. Again, I want you to remind yourself, I am here to guide, not to fix. Repeat that as often as you need to. I am here to guide, not to fix. And again, the more you take care of you, the better you can show up for your clients. Remember, you cannot pour from an empty cup. I am not telling you guys anything rocket science that you don't already know. Literally everything I preach on here, you are already telling your clients. These are already tips that you are giving your clients. It's already education that you are, giving to your moms and your dads. I just need you to kind of hold up a mirror and give it back to yourself too. Because again, the more you take care of you, the better you're going to show up for your clients. And that is truly what makes this birth work sustainable. Okay, moving on to number 3. You have to decompress after every single birth. I don't care if it was the best birth that you've ever attended. If you don't have a way to release that emotional weight of a birth, it's going to pile up. And again, especially those intervention heavy births. If it's a tough birth and you don't have any way to process it, it's going to pile up and it is going to eat you alive. So here are some things that I do after births. Number 1, I journal. So whether it's in my phone, in my notes app, like when I'm still in the parking lot, I journal. I write down what happened or any important like timestamps of the birth. I write down how I felt, and I also write down what I'm going to let go of. That one is huge. And truly, it took a lot of really hard births for me to get to that step of writing down what I'm going to let go of, but it has helped so much. Another thing I do is I try to move my body. So obviously, when I get home, I sleep. Like that is priority number 1. But after I wake up, I try to do some sort of walking, stretching. I have a walking pad underneath my desk that I love to walk on. That way I can still work and walk at the same time. But you have to move that energy out of your body. Next one, I feel like this one goes without saying, but I also feel like a lot of doulas don't do this, is you need to talk it out. I want you to find another doula who is in your area, or hell, even if you've never met them, if it's just a doula that you're friends with on Instagram, message them, talk it out, let yourself process the birth. Because again, the goal here isn't just to rest, it's truly to clear out what is not yours to carry. So if this episode's hitting home and you know that this is not something you're doing, if you feel like you're leaving these births and you are running on empty, I want you to go and sign up for that masterclass that I've told you about 100 times. It's called Burnout to Booked Out. Again, this is the masterclass where we go really deep into the mindset behind burnout, right? Like we're talking why it happens, how to recognize it actually before it knocks you on your ass, and truly the exact shifts that you need to break the cycle. This masterclass is all about why burnout isn't just about being overworked. It's actually about how you're holding space for your clients, for their birth outcomes, and truly, again, for the energy that is not yours to carry. We also talk about how to stop internalizing birth outcomes, right? So you're not walking away from every tough birth feeling drained, and even bigger than that, feeling defeated as a doula, feeling like you didn't do enough. I also talk about the nervous system side of burnout. So again, not something that people really think about, but why birth work is so emotionally taxing and what you can do to protect your energy in the moment, like during the birth, but also after the birth. And then I also walk you through practical recovery strategies because again, resting isn't the actual same as resetting. So after a birth, yeah, you need to sleep, you need to rest, but you need to reset. So again, if you've ever felt like you're constantly just running on fumes, or you have a hard birth and you are questioning whether you can keep doing this birth work long term, or maybe you just feel heavier after a birth, this masterclass is going to give you everything you need to reset. So you don't have to keep doing birth the hard way, right? You don't have to do it alone. So that's why I created this free masterclass, is it's really going to help you break that burnout cycle. So again, it's completely free. It's over at birthadvocacypodcast.com/burnout. As always, I will throw that in the show notes, but seriously, you've heard me say it a million times, but go sign up. It's completely free. But before we wrap up, I do want to leave you with a challenge like I always do. So because I know how easy it is to, right, like this podcast will end and you're going to just move on to the next birth, move on to the next client, the next thing on your to-do list without ever actually stopping to check in with yourself. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to give yourself time to actually process your last birth, right? Like think of the last birth you were at. Was that today? Was it yesterday? Was it 2 weeks ago, 2 months ago, whatever? Did you actually take a moment to release that birth? Or did you just literally shove it down and move on to the next thing, right? Next client, next birth. And if you're carrying tension from that birth, whether again, it was last week, last year, I don't care. I want you to choose one thing today that's going to help you let go of that birth. Again, maybe it's journaling about what happened, what felt heavy, and what you're choosing to release. That one is huge for me. Or maybe it's getting outside. It is cold as hell right now in Charleston. It's 38 degrees, but maybe it's moving your body inside, right? Like maybe it's dancing, maybe it's walking, whatever it is to help you feel like you are letting go of that energy that's stuck in your body. Again, if you've never read the book, The Body Keeps Score, I guarantee you even if you feel like it's not affecting you, your body is keeping the score. You have to move that energy out of your body. Or again, maybe it is talking to another doula, another birth worker who, literally gets it. Because you cannot process this stuff alone. Whatever it is, just do something. I don't care what it is. Like pick something that works for you and just do it. Because the longer that you are holding on to the emotional weight of a tough birth, the heavier it is going to get. And then once you've decided what you're going to do to release it, I want you to DM me over on Instagram. I'm over at Birth Advocacy Podcast, and just tell me what you did to, again, move that energy out, to process that birth. I want you to start taking care of yourself as much as you are taking care of everyone else. And as always, if you feel like this episode was helpful, I want you to hit share and share it with another doula who needs to hear it, because we seriously need more birth workers, more doulas, more midwives in this field who are not completely drowning in burnout and running on fumes and questioning whether they can keep doing this work. Because again, you do not have to carry the weight of these births that you're attending. You are not responsible for every outcome. You have to show up, do your job, and then take care of you. And I promise you, when you start doing that, you will have not only the energy, but also the clarity and the passion to keep showing up for clients who need you the most.